Israel and Iran claim to have continued bombing each other, even hours after U.S. President Donald Trump announced a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, saying the deal is now in effect. And South Korean stocks rebounded sharply to an almost 4-year high on Tuesday over the reported East and Middle East tensions. In fact, the benchmark Kospi broke the 3,100 mark point, surpassing the 3,000 threshold just last week. Ahead of the 75th anniversary of the start of the Korean War on Wednesday, President Lee Jae-myung called for sufficient compensation to recognize those who made extraordinary sacrifices to protect the nation. Just hours after the ceasefire between Israel and Iran took effect, tensions have once again escalated. Israel accuses Iran of violating the ceasefire with missile launches, while Iran denies the claims. Our Kim Jong-sil has the latest.
In a dramatic escalation, Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz has ordered the Israel Defense Forces to respond forcefully to what he called a violation of the ceasefire by Iran. Israel claims it detected missile launches from Iran just hours after both countries agreed to halt hostilities earlier Tuesday. Air defense systems were activated and citizens were urged to seek shelter as the missiles were reportedly intercepted. Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, a close ally of Prime Minister Netanyahu, also took to social media, posting, "Tehran will shake." However, Iran has denied the accusations. Iranian state media quoted General Abdullahim Musabi, the military's chief of staff, who stated that no missiles have been fired towards Israel in the past few hours. A senior Iranian security official also told CNN that no missiles have been fired at the enemy since the ceasefire took effect at 7:30 a.m. local time. Iran's Supreme National Security Council also issued a warning stating that any further Israeli aggression would be met with a decisive and firm response. This comes after U.S. President Donald Trump announced a ceasefire earlier on social media, urging both sides to adhere to the agreement. In a Truth Social post, Trump said, "The ceasefire is now in effect. Please do not violate it." The coming hours will be pivotal in determining whether peace holds or if the situation escalates further. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
So questions still linger over such a fragile ceasefire. Will the ceasefire hold or not? Our Pyongyang talked to some experts.
U.S. President Donald Trump announced a surprise ceasefire between Israel and Iran, but its durability and the next steps remain uncertain. Experts weighed in on the situation in the Middle East.
The broader region is still, of course, unstable. And in principle, this pause in hostilities could go in two different directions. It could go towards something more solidified over time, or this could unravel again and lead back into conflict, depending on whether or not both sides hold to the ceasefire.
Experts say there is no telling how long this ceasefire will last, but point to Iran's compromised position as an indicator that the ceasefire will hold for the time being.
Is that Iran's military capabilities have been enormously degraded, not just during this most recent air campaign from Israel and the United States, but also really over the last several years. And also many of Iran's proxies in the region have also been degraded, notably, obviously, Hamas and Hezbollah. And so it may take quite some time for Iran to reconstitute a capability that can really credibly threaten Israel.
Though Israel appeared to be successful in the past 2 weeks, a drawn-out conflict may have brought accumulating damage to Israel as well, and pressure from the Trump administration influenced Israel's decision to agree to the ceasefire. As for the U.S., although President Trump had initially opposed direct involvement in the conflict, he ultimately seized what he saw as a strategic opportunity, led by Israel, to severely undermine Iran's nuclear capabilities.
That's why the U.S. joined the airstrikes, while consistently and explicitly reiterating that the objective was not regime change, but solely targeting Iran's nuclear program.
Israel now must turn its tactical military gains into long-term diplomatic success, while Iran faces tough choices on rebuilding its nuclear program and regional influence amid growing isolation.
The challenge for Israel is to turn these tactical military victories into a strategic victory, which involves politics and diplomacy. And in Iran's case, they have some very difficult choices with respect to whether or not they will try to reconstitute their nuclear program, whether or not they will be able to and will be interested in reconstituting their proxies in neighboring countries.
The ceasefire between Israel and Iran may mark a pause in hostilities, but the long-term outcome remains uncertain as both sides weigh their next steps. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
In the meantime, though, local stocks here in South Korea responded favorably to Trump's claim of a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. In fact, the benchmark Kospi topped the 3,100 mark. Our correspondent Park Junan has more.
South Korea's stock market rallied with strong momentum on Tuesday, with potential reports indicating a temporary ceasefire between Israel and Iran. South Korea's benchmark Kospi for the first time in 3 years and 9 months surpassed 3,100 points and closed with over 3,103 points, up 2.96% from Monday's close. Also, South Korea's tech-heavy Kosdaq closed beyond 800 points for the first time in 11 months.
With oil prices falling and the U.S. dollar weakening again, foreign demand for South Korean stocks picked up, leading to strong buying. This helped the Kospi break through the 3,100 mark during intraday trading.
Among stocks that showed a strong increase on Tuesday were some of the country's tech giants, SK Hynix and Samsung Electronics. SK Hynix once again broke its all-time high, surpassing the 280,000 won mark, while Samsung Electronics rebounded to the 60,000 won level during the day. The won's exchange rate against the US dollar fell as tensions de-escalated. The rate opened at 1,369 won on the Seoul foreign exchange market, 15.31 lower than Monday's market close. Later in the day, the gap widened to end at around 1,361, down 24.1 won from Monday's close at 3:30 p.m. Global oil prices sharply fell to pre-war levels following reports of a temporary ceasefire. Brent crude oil, which once traded above $81 on Monday, is trading below $70 as of Tuesday, which is an over 12% decrease in just a day. As South Korea is heavily dependent on oil imports, the changes in oil prices could affect the country's economy in various ways.
Korea imports almost 100% of its crude oil. When oil prices rise, it directly impacts the petrochemical industry, which uses oil as a raw material. But many other sectors are also tied to oil prices. Higher oil costs increase import prices and make exports more difficult.
South Korean officials on Monday held an interagency meeting to crack down on unfair oil price surges and monitor financial markets to swiftly address any difficulties that may arise. Park Junan, Arirang News.
South Korea's top trade negotiator has met with his U.S. counterpart for high-level talks for the first time under the new Lee Jae-myung administration. According to the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy on Tuesday, Yo Han-gu, the new chief trade negotiator, met with U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick in Washington on Monday, local time. Ye reiterated to the U.S. side the importance of exempting both reciprocal tariffs and tariffs on specific items, including automobiles and steel. Now, this visit marks the first of its kind under the Lee Jae-myung administration ahead of a looming July 8th deadline for a proposed package deal. Consumer confidence in South Korea is on the rebound, hitting its highest level in 4 years. Now driven by eased political tensions, fresh budget plans, and expectations for new economic policies. Our Kim Do-yeon has the details.
Consumer sentiment in South Korea continued to improve in June, marking a third straight month of gains and hitting the highest level in 4 years since June 2021. According to the Bank of Korea on Tuesday, the Composite Consumer Sentiment Index rose to 108.7, up 6.9 points from May. After plunging 12.5 points in December during the martial law crisis, sentiment has swung back and forth, but it's now been on the rise for 3 consecutive months. This survey was done on 2,500 households between June 10th to 17th. The index reflects 6 key factors, including current living conditions, future income, and economic outlook. A reading above 100 signals optimism, while anything below indicates pessimism. All 6 components improved compared to May. Notably, assessments of current economic conditions and future outlook saw the biggest gains. The central bank attributed the rise to reduced political uncertainty, the second extra budget, and expectations for new government policies. In addition, with some time before the second supplementary budget of the year passes the National Assembly, the BOK said this trend is likely to continue for some time. Meanwhile, the House Price Outlook Index jumped 9 points to 120, the highest since October 2021, and the sharpest increase in more than 2 years. It suggests more households now expect home prices, especially in Seoul, to rise. In contrast, expectations for interest rates dropped 6 points, hitting the lowest level since June 2020. Inflation expectations for the next year also edged down by 0.2 percentage points. 김도연, Arirang News.
Tomorrow, June 25th, we mark its solemn anniversary, the start of the Korean War 75 years ago. Now, in light of this occasion, President Lee Jae-myung called for better compensation for the country's war veterans at a cabinet meeting earlier today. Our top office correspondent Yoon Jung-min has more.
우리가 보통 안보라고 하는 얘기를 할 때는 하도 너무 중요한 일이기도 하고 일상적인 것이어서 잘 느낌이 안 오죠. 그러나 우리 공동체 자체를 지키는 안보 문제는 아무리 강조해도 지나치지가 않습니다.
This was how President Lee Jae-myung began the cabinet meeting on Tuesday, a day before the nation remembers the 75th anniversary of the Korean War. Once again, noting the importance of peace without conflict, he called for efforts to better compensate those who made extraordinary sacrifices to defend the nation, adding that security is key to the economy. And the focus of the meeting was on the economy, trying to hammer out how to tamp down higher prices and help the lives of the people.
지금 대한민국을 포함해서 전 세계가 매우 상황이 어렵습니다. 취약계층들에 대해서 피해가 더 가중되지 않게 세심한 배려를.
Among over 24 items approved was a revision to a related law to extend fuel tax cuts, as well as individual consumption tax breaks following the crisis in the Middle East. He also reportedly instructed the Oceans and Fisheries Ministry to review whether it's possible to relocate to Busan by the end of this year. What was also notable was President Lee revisiting the importance of the responsibility of public servants, regardless of a political situation, saying how they handle their jobs makes a great difference.
권력이 그런 것 같습니다. 여러분들이 하시는 일, 작은 사인 하나, 또는 작은 관심 하나, 이게 여러분들한테는 아주 작은 한 순간 또는 뭐 거의 의미 없는 어쩌면 그런 것들일지 모르지만 그게 세상에 미치는 영향은 그 작은 관심 또 어떤 판단에 의해서 누군가는 죽고 살고.
The president has emphasized the importance of public servant responsibility during nearly every meeting. This might be no coincidence, as the importance of details and competency has been often highlighted by the new government. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
The ruling Democratic Party launched a task force on Tuesday to tackle rising prices and ease the cost of living. Floor leader Kim Byung-gi said stabilizing prices is key to supporting people's livelihoods and restoring the economy. And Kim noted that as inflation rises, so does the public's hardship, emphasizing the need for special measures. He urged the task force to come up with practical, tangible solutions amid crises at home and abroad, including the conflict in the Middle East. Kim also stressed since President Lee Jae-myung's first executive order was to launch an emergency economic response task force, the National Assembly must do its part as well. The National Assembly held a confirmation hearing for Prime Minister nominee Kim Min-seok, and from the start, rival parties clashed over his failure to submit key documents, namely mainly related to his wealth and family. Our political correspondent Arirang has more.
Democratic Party four-term lawmaker Kim Min-seok stood before the National Assembly on Tuesday, stating that if given the chance to serve as Prime Minister, he would do his best to fulfill his responsibilities by always listening and communicating.
I'll work to be a forward-looking and innovative Prime Minister, practical and unbound by protocol, hands-on rather than desk-bound, and communicative instead of giving one-sided directives.
Kim said that once in office, he would focus on quickly advancing policies over the next 100 days to address the previous government's shortcomings. He also vowed to make reviving the economy his top priority, starting with improving people's livelihoods affected by high prices. During the hearing, questions centered on Kim's previous conviction for illegal political funding, the sharp rise in his assets over the last 5 years, and concerns about his son's college admissions.
Apart from my official salary, my other income came from congratulatory and condolence money, 2 book launch events, and occasional help with living expenses from my wife's mother. These made up my total additional income.
Tuesday's confirmation hearing began with arguments and harsh remarks. The ruling Democratic Party and the main opposition People Power Party clashed from the start over the failure to select any witnesses and Kim's failure to submit key documents mainly about his wealth and family. With no agreement on witnesses between the parties, the hearing proceeded without a first for a Prime Minister nominee.
For the first time, the confirmation hearing is being held without witnesses. It's a blind hearing due to the nominee's failure to submit requested data, having not given consent to share personal information.
There have been many unfair and unreasonable demands for documents. Is this really a proper confirmation hearing, or just an attempt to embarrass and criticize?
The Prime Minister is the only cabinet post needing parliamentary consent. Confirmation needs majority approval with a majority of lawmakers present. The 2-day hearing continues through Wednesday. 신하영, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung will host a luncheon this Friday at Cheongwade's Yeongbin-gwan Reception Hall to mark National Patriots and Veterans Month. The president's office says around 160 guests, including National Merit recipients, their families, and heads of veterans organizations have been invited. The event aims to honor those who sacrificed their lives for the nation and reaffirm the government's commitment to repaying them for their services. And historical records can give us some of the greatest insights to the war, and especially the Korean War. And the South Korean Army has been working on a restoration project for the past 5 years. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
Apollonia Oud box, known for its excellent preservation qualities, is taken out from a mobile rack. Inside is a heavily damaged operations log from RK Army headquarters, written in February 1952. This is just one of 81,000 military pieces from the Korean War that were designated as National Registered Cultural Heritage in 2020. Marking the very first modern war records to be designated as National Heritage, Army Archives Management Group has been restoring Korean War records, already having successfully restored about 40,000 pieces since 2020.
I'm currently in the Military Policy Archives. This map records the changes in the location of the 6th Division's command posts during the war. The green lines show advances, while the black lines indicate retreats.
Aside from 1.6-meter-long map of the Korean 6th Division's CP location routes, are records showing details such as information on the enemy and operational plans from major battles of the Korean War. These important documents of the past, however, had to go through a long and painstaking restoration process.
After over 70 years, the records show severe discoloration, contamination, creases, damage, and acidification. We are working to eliminate such damage and repair the missing parts.
Restoring is one thing, preserving is another. To make sure the records are safely preserved, the digitized records are put on microfilm, known for its outstanding longevity and durability. It is indeed a demanding process requiring a great deal of patience, but junior soldiers say this allows them to feel the patriotic spirit of those whose steps they are following in.
As a person in charge of the Korean War Records Restoration Project and a junior soldier, I take great pride in honoring the sacrifices of senior comrades and continuing the legacy of the patriotic spirit.
Through the restoration and preservation process, the 75-year history of the Korean War gets passed down to future generations. 김보경, Arirang News, 계룡.
Monsoon rains have been falling around the country today and will continue until tomorrow. As for the amount of rainfall, about 20 to 70 millimeters will fall in Gyeongsangnam-do Province, 20 to 60 in central regions and Gyeongsangbuk-do Province, and up to 40 millimeters in the Jeollado provinces. In some areas, winds will be gusty and thunder and lightning are also expected. Most of the heat wave has died down today, and the daytime temperature in Seoul tomorrow will be around 25 degrees Celsius, about 5 degrees lower than today. However, it will move back to nearly 29 degrees once the rain has stopped. Tomorrow morning will start warm at around 19 to 21 degrees Celsius with rain in most parts of the country. Daily highs will move up to 25 degrees in Seoul and Chuncheon and 26 degrees in Gwangju and Busan. Rain will return to central regions over the weekend. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. For all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.